How's it going, everybody? My name is Thomas Draven, back again for another video, and in this one we're going to be going over all of my guitars that I've ever owned since I started playing guitar almost 10 years ago. I've been playing guitars since 2012. I was 12 years old, and I'm almost 20 now, so it's been about 8 years that I've been playing guitar, and I'm going to try and go through all of the guitars that I've owned, and this is like the 5th time I'm trying to record this, so here's the format that we're going to be following. So this video is going to be kind of rapid fire in some parts and really slow in some, because there are some guitars that I really want to get into the story behind and like how I came to acquire this guitar, or at least its significance to me as a musician or as a person. And then all the rest are going to be kind of like quick fire, but I want to make sure that I get everything and don't miss anything. So I have a piece of paper with it all written down, and I'm gonna do my best to get through all of it, and we're gonna see how it goes. So like I said, some of these guitars are gonna have a cool story behind them, or something interesting about them, or some sort of work that I had done to them. But other guitars, even if they were modded or even built by me, that don't really have an interesting story or weren't that significant to me, I'm just gonna sort of supercut those together and put them in between the like larger stories and try and get them in as close to chronological order as possible. The first guitar I ever got was a classical guitar that I got as a gift for my birthday. Never actually learned how to play anything. Second guitar I got was a Luna acoustic that I still have today. Very near and dear to my heart. Used it for recording Goodnight Goodbye, and I still have it, still play it. It is a fantastic instrument, and that is the first song that I learned a Green Day riff on, and so that will always be with me for the rest of my life. First electric guitar was a Yamaha electric guitar that was kind of junky, kind of terrible, like really poor electronics. They would always crackle, there were sharp frets and everything, wouldn't stay in tune, but it was my first electric, so I felt powerful when I played it until I upgraded. First decent electric guitar I got was a Gretsch Electromatic Jet. It was great for the time that I had it, but then I started hating the Bigsby and everything about that tremolo system, and then started hating all the switches and the knobs and everything like that, so I ended up getting rid of that guitar. Old as hell blue Squier Stratocaster. The first guitar I ever modified was a Squier vintage modified Jaguar. Ended up putting a Seymour Duncan Invader in it and a roasted maple neck from Warmoth. Swapped out the pickups to EMGs, swapped the pickups out to Seymour Duncans, and that is where it kind of stayed for a while. I used it in my bands, my old band's first gig and only gig, but that was like the first love of my life when it came to guitar. When I graduated middle school, I was gifted a 2004 Les Paul Supreme from my dad. It's a great guitar, you know, it's a Gibson, so it's, you know, that Gibson legacy, all that kind of stuff, but I don't like single cut guitars, I don't like heavy guitars, I don't like short scale lengths, and it just didn't really suit me at the time, or now especially, so it just sits in its case, and I don't even think it has strings on it at this point. Kit built Les Paul Jr. started its life as yellow, then became black and relict. Charvel Desolation Skatecaster. I've owned 2 different semi-hollow Stratocasters at different times in my career as a guitarist. One very early on that I made out of a kit, sold it, regretted it, bought another one that was already completed, and put like Seymour Duncan Omega pickup in the bridge so I could get those chugs. And they were very cool for the time that I had them, but I fell out of love with them very quickly because they didn't play very well, and they were just very dark sounding guitars. The first like really amazing quality guitar that I ever owned was a Fender Jim Root Jazzmaster. That was like the first amazing guitar that I ever owned, and I thought it was so good, and I loved that guitar so much, and I used that almost exclusively for all of the recordings off of my band's debut album, at least the original version of that album, which sounded terrible, mostly because I didn't know how to mix, but that guitar sounded crushing. Random Squier Super Strat, Random Squier Super Strat, Epiphone Les Paul Jr. Sunburst with a P90. Relict Black and Red Telecaster, then had a couple of Strats, one that was matte black with EMG 81 and SA, really gnarly guitar. Used that as my backup for a while when I was playing with another band, and also built myself a Ghetto Burst guitar, as I called it, which was a Sunburst guitar, Sunburst Strat, made from rattle can spray paint, and it just had like this weird mojo to it because it was relict and looked really beat up, and then I put American, like US Fender pickups in it, and it sounded so good. I don't know why I ever got rid of it, but unfortunately I don't have it today. BC Rich Mick Thompson Warlock with dual EMG 81 pickups. There was one part of my life where I really wanted to be in A Day to Remember, and that's around when Neil Westfall got his ESP LTD Eclipse with the all white and the gold aesthetic. I thought it looked so cool, but I couldn't afford it, so I basically did my own version of it in Jazzmaster form with a Jazzmaster shaped body and all white with a single white pickup and gold pickup and gold hardware, and I thought it looked super gnarly even though it played really terrible. Epiphone SG with Seymour Duncan JB and 59. An AliExpress copy of my Jim Root guitar because I was so scared of breaking it because it was so expensive, so I bought an AliExpress equivalent that was terrible and awful and replaced the neck, the pickups, and just about everything besides the body itself. It probably would have been easier had I just built myself a whole new guitar from scratch, but I didn't because that would have taken forever and I'm a terrible person. So Warmoth neck, bare knuckle pickups, couldn't save it from sounding like shit. Sold all the parts because and got rid of the guitar. An ES335 kit that I built and put a racing stripe in the walnut finish because I loved Blink-182 at the time and thought it looked so punk to put a racing stripe on a natural finish sort of body, and it didn't look great, but that's what I did anyway. Washburn Super Strat that I made to look like it was Typo Negative because I love that band, they're fantastic, and it was just like a really sort of metal thing to do, just make it out of gaffer's tape, and I thought it was really fucking cool when I did it. My first 8-string was a Harley Benton 8-string, like the really low budget one that is just like straight frets, 27 inches, you know, really crappy pickups and everything like that, but I was blown away with like the overall build quality of the guitar, and it was so good and so mind-blowing that I still have a Harley Benton 8-string even today. Got an LTD F10 from my friend Travis, and then got a 400 series Viper FM from my friend Kyle. Put weird pickups in both of them, and they were metal as fuck. Harley Benton Bass 6, used that for the bass of my original debut album for my band. Didn't really sit very well as a bass, but sounded like a guitar tuned down an octave, I guess. Strat that I made from parts that I got from a friend that I ended up selling the pickguard for, even though the pickguard was way cooler than anything else on that guitar. My first really good 8-string was an Ibanez S8, which came with EMG 808s. That guitar had so many issues just from the neck not staying straight with the single truss rod, and then the EMG pickups being muddy as all hell, along with insane neck dive because the body was so thin. But that was my first really nice 8-string guitar, and that was the song that I used, or I recorded for The One I Dream Of for our second album, and that guitar was really cool, had a lot of mojo, had a lot going for it, but the neck dive was just such that I couldn't get used to it, so I ended up selling it. Then when I got into college, I bought myself a really awesome guitar. I bought myself a PRS SE Mark Holcomb. That guitar was so cool, had really awesome features, and I got a lot of value for my money. That being said, I regret selling it. Like, I feel so bad about selling it, but I didn't need 3 6-strings, so I ended up getting rid of it. And, you know, I hope whoever has it now gets a lot of use out of it because it's a fantastic guitar and I absolutely love it. Use that in my band's first gig, so a lot of nostalgia there, and I hope it brings whoever has it a lot of happiness. My first headless guitar was an NK headless guitar that I bought used, and it had like Seymour Duncan pickups in it, and it seemed really cool to me. And when I first picked it up, I was just blown away with how comfortable it was to play and how ergonomic the shape was and how light it was because it didn't have a headstock. And if you actually compare that to my headless custom guitar now, you can definitely draw a lot of parallels there. I definitely think it had a huge hand in influencing my taste as a guitarist today. PV Super Strat with a Floyd Rose that I never ended up actually using for anything. Headless guitar that I made custom out of a kit, and the hardware was so shit that I could never actually play. My first 7-string. Yes, I started on 8-string guitars before I ever bought a 7-string guitar. My first 7-string guitar was an Ibanez Geo Silverburst, which I've never seen since. A Geo Silverburst. It looked really cool, put Seymour Duncan, DiMarzio Titan pickups in it, and, you know, just chugged all day long on that thing. And man, it had a lot of issues with the neck. Again, just Ibanez necks for some reason, at least the ones that I've had, don't like to stay in place sometimes, but it was an awesome guitar for 7-string. And again, like I have a lot of love for Ibanez guitars even today. My vintage Icon 62 Tele and the Chapman ML3 Pro Modern, two guitars that I bought when I first got to college. I bought the vintage Icon, loved it, put 13s on it for some reason because I hate myself, tuned it up to standard, used that for rhythm tracking and like quad tracking in the Grey Tuesday album. Sounded jangly and twangy and mean, and I loved that guitar, but traded it in for the Chapman ML3 Pro Modern because it had Fishman pickups in it, and it was such a good price that I could not resist. So the Chapman guitar became my main guitar at college for a long time until I took the pickups from it, put it in my PRS, sold the Chapman, and kept the PRS as my main at college and used that for quite a number of gigs. Fender Jazz Bass, another bass guitar that I bought at college, just totally on a whim. Went into like this local music shop while I was waiting for a bus one day and saw this Fender Jazz Bass that was kind of beat up for a really good price. And ever since then, that is the guitar I've been using for bass tracking in our recordings, and that thing sounds huge. Obviously, my two 10S headless guitars, my first Low-Life custom guitar, I've dubbed it the Low-Life because of my band Low-Life Tea Party. Check us out. If you haven't heard me say it before, you've heard me say it now. Check us out. We're a great band. I think we're really good, at least. So I got the first custom one, the blue one, and then shortly thereafter bought a prototype of the Ghost, which is the walnut finish with the luminescent veins in it. And those are my two main guitars because I just love the headless design, love the way they play, love the way they feel, and cannot argue with the amazing quality that you get for the price. I will never not talk about how great 10S guitars are. LTD EC258 8-string guitar, had Fishman pickups when I bought it, ripped out the Fishman pickups, sold the shell of the guitar because it was a ½ inch too short. Ibanez JBM 27, talked about it before on my channel, it's been in a couple different videos now. Got it for a really good price. Love the band Periphery, love Mark Holcomb, love Misha Mansour, love Jake Bowen, love Nolly, love Spencer, love Matt, love the entire band. They're all such insanely good musicians. And so when I saw this JBM 27s for such a ridiculously good price, I leapt on it and I bought it, and I still have it even today. My Harley Benton Fanfret 8, again, talked about this in previous videos, but I tried putting the Fishman pickups from another guitar into my Ibanez 8-string at the time. They wouldn't fit. I was really bummed. It kept crapping out when I tried to play it. So I was like, I need an 8-string guitar, and I decided to buy one from Thomann, buy the Harley Benton Fanfret, and the pickups worked perfectly in that one. So I've never looked back, and that is probably just going to be my main 8-string from now on. And I think I'm probably gonna buy like 2 or 3 more just because they're so inexpensive that it's just, you know, a no-brainer for me. Like, they're so inexpensive. If you haven't tried one, you definitely need to. Harley Benton, great stuff. Can never talk about how cool they are and what a great investment they are. Agile Intrepid 830, 30-inch scale 8-string guitar, because I wanted to tune down to 9-string territory but not have a 9-string because they're super niche, super inaccessible for people who want to modify them because not a lot of places offer 9-string pickups. So I opted to stay with an 8-string and just go for the longer scale length, and I do not regret it. That guitar sounds massive and gets me down to that low A0 like it's nothing. Rob Scallon 7-string, won that from charity. Cool guitar, probably one of the coolest I'll ever hope to play, and it still has dust on it from Rob Scallon's house, which is pretty dope. Jason Richardson 7-string guitar, got this for a really awesome price and put DiMarzio Titan pickups in it. Awesome guitar, cannot shred like Jason, but I love his guitar. Last guitar in this video is actually a bass. It's a bass that I actually just ordered the other day, and it's going to be coming in January of 2021. It is a Red Sub Coliseum 6-string bass with fan frets, roasted maple, active preamp, like everything that I could ever need from a bass for recording and using with my bass player in my band. And also it's a 6-string, so that whenever my bass player brings out his 5-string bass, I can pull out the 6-string and say that mine is bigger than yours. Alright guys, I hope you've enjoyed watching this video of all the guitars that I've owned since I started playing. It's almost 50 different instruments, 50 different acoustic, electric, and bass guitars. So I hope you've enjoyed watching. Certainly I had a lot of nostalgia going through a lot of these old guitars, and I hope you've enjoyed the process. I've been Thomas Draven, you've been wonderful. This isn't Fluff's channel, so sorry. It's a wonderful day. Peace.